Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Interview With, where e-commerce movers and makers share the real stories behind their brands, their tech, and their ideas. Tune in, learn a thing or two, and enjoy the shop talk. With me today is none other than Sarah Davidson, the Jill of all trades over at Bridge. We're going to talk about that, as well as an angel investor. Very fascinating stories. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you so much. Happy Friday.
Yeah, happy Friday. Well, it depends on when they're all watching this, but it could be a Friday, it could be a Monday, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, as I like to say. But at any rate, Sarah, tell us a little bit about the Jill of all trades. I love that. I think that's a fantastic statement. But jack of all trades, Jill of all trades, master of none. But what's your context there, and why are you Jill of all trades and master of some?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's my unofficial title I go by at Bridge and really in the industry. The backstory to that is I joined Bridge about a year and a half ago. And when I joined, we were a seed stage SaaS startup based in New York. And really my job when I joined was I do anything to help the business grow. So part of that, of course, is sales. I am not a formally trained salesperson. So I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I really, really want to spend time with our customers, with the product. I wanted to be 1,000% convinced of the inner workings of the product, the background, et cetera. My background's in management consulting. So I feel like I couldn't help myself, but like get in the weeds, figure everything out. And that's created a really amazing feedback loop as I still run a book of business at Bridge. I lead all things partnerships, but I still get my hands dirty kind of on the customer success, account management side of the business. I'm such a huge advocate of voice of the customer, customer feedback. So really still kind of play a role in all of those parts. And really most recently, as we've brought on new funding, have had the pleasure of onboarding all of our new team members, kind of sharing my stories, advice, hence the Jill of all trades title.
I love it. I love it. And for those brands that are listening, that's most important. And the agencies who would be interested in a partnership here, talk a little bit about Bridge and the Bridge experience and how you guys are merging the offline to online element and basically like the back door to getting customers' first party data into the hands of brands that really need it.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a little cheesy, but what we do is really in our name. We focus on bridging that gap between offline and online. And when I say offline, that's really defined as any place somebody could buy a brand, interact with a brand outside of their D2C ecosystem. So today we know that about 73% of consumers shop omnichannel. And omnichannel today is not just, the big box retailer down the street. It's the bodega if you're in New York. It's the TikTok shop if you're scrolling. Of course, it's Amazon. I think today still 4 in 10 people, their online purchase is from Amazon.
Totally.
So that's so many places where a brand doesn't have the opportunity to really get to know their consumer. They have no idea who I am if I interact or buy that brand on TikTok Shop. So our kind of goal at Bridge is to help brands bridge that gap, as I mentioned. So we enable them to compliantly collect first party data through a variety of ways, anything from a rebate to product warranty registration, supporting offline events, et cetera. And then the beauty of that is all that data then gets passed through to their stack. So everything they've already spent time setting up, they have access to, and you can really uncover all of those, black boxes of data.
I love that. A term that we coined here at Roswell that I was talking about last year was the above the funnel approach. I don't know if that's caught on yet, but everyone talks about the funnel, which is basically the user experience, the path to purchase once they get on your site. But as you said accurately, there are so many other touch points that are happening in the consumer journey that are outside of the D2C experience, above the funnel, if you will, in Amazon, whether you're Etsy or other marketplaces and whatnot. But from my understanding, a lot of these marketplaces frown upon being able to tactfully put inserts in so that way you can get that information. How does Bridge stay compliant with those rules so that the brands that are out there aren't afraid of actually contacting you and engaging in Bridge experiences for their personal brands?
Yeah, great question. So, what I'll always caveat this with is I am not an Amazon expert or agency. So, this is not legal advice, right? But what we've learned from our customers is that because Bridge is a third party platform and solution, it's actually better. So, folks I've worked with in the past that have gotten their hands slapped, it's because they were directing straight from an Amazon package to their Shopify site with a
That,
nice
yeah,
$10 off
do
discount.
that.
That's a big no-no. So what we're able to enable with Bridge is these beautiful customized experiences so brands can really choose what that looks and feels like. So they're mostly focused on education So if you think about, let's say, buying new pots and pans and you order those from Amazon, that bridge experience gives you an opportunity as a consumer to register your pans, aka activate your warranty. But also, it's going to have care and cleaning guides. It's going to maybe share some recipes that you could make with your pans. So it's a really inclusive kind of end to end customer experience. But of course, if the consumer registers their pans, now that brand has the opportunity to know exactly who you are, but it's not directing you straight to their, D2C Shopify site, which is where folks tend to get a little bit in trouble.
And if I remember correctly from the tech, it integrates with your Shopify store to be able to create a landing page of sorts to be able to engage in the type of customer experience that that the brand is looking for. But then inadvertently, they're able to, or intentionally, be able to capture that data so that they can retarget them in the future. So it's a clever way of staying compliant, but at the same time being able to extract first party data. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So you actually build these, experiences, bridge experiences or landing pages in the bridge platform. But if a brand's on Shopify, and we also support brands not on Shopify, that data is automatically passed through and it creates a customer profile. So
Got it.
let's say, I have a little example here, Momofuku chili
You
crunch.
just ate that last night.
Okay,
Literally.
everyone loves it.
Funny.
So
It's
if you
amazing.
did you scan the QR code on the back of the
Well, I
jar?
will tonight. You know what I
You
mean?
have
Yeah.
to. So you'll get to see a bridge experience. And so this is a great example of like, I bought this at a great little store in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
So Momofuku never has a chance to know I'm a customer of theirs. But
Uh,
if I go through that experience, the value exchange to me as a consumer are recipes from their celebrity chef. I want those recipes. I just bought this amazing chili crunch. I want to know what to cook with it. So Bridge is giving me that opportunity to connect with the brand. Now Momofuku's happier. They know Sarah, that I live in Brooklyn, and they're going to start marketing to me.
we're going to do a little bit of business right now, which is what I'm famous for, anyways. Is that I already have 3 or 4 brands that I'm thinking in my mind after you gave that real world example. Let's talk offline because I think that we might be able to make some business happen out of this podcast too.
Would love that.
So, why Bridge.it? It's not an Italian company, is it?
It's not. It's not. So I'll have to double check with our founders, but I think the backstory there is that somebody had the domain just bridge.com and it's been a huge pain. So bridge it is kind of like,
That makes sense.
the verb. It hasn't totally caught on. So it's bridge.it, but we do also have bridge.ai. So more to come there.
And fun fact, do you know what .ai stands for?
I don't actually.
The territory or country of Anguilla.
No.
It's unbelievable. And
Wow. I hope somebody made a lot of money from that.
blowing your mind further, you know what .io is?
I don't.
Correct me if I'm wrong out there, internet world and everybody who's listening, but I believe it's the Indian Ocean. So it's like, all these little TLDs are based on regions of the world or .edu or .org or .gov for specific purposes and whatnot. But .ai is not for AI, oddly enough,
Wow. Well,
Kind of,
I need to know what the next trend is so I can start sitting
yeah.
on some domains.
We're going to retire and become domainers. Love it.
Yeah.
So speaking of AI, you can't get away from it now. I like to say that AI is not going to take jobs away from people. It's going to take jobs away from people who don't use AI. It's not about
Mhm.
elimination. It's about augmentation. And the train has left the station. Either get on or you're going to get run over. And so the future is here. It's all evolving. SEO is becoming AEO now, answer engine optimization, and the beat goes on. What's your approach at Bridge initially in terms of embracing AI, and what is on the roadmap for you guys? And separately, what is your thoughts on how AI is impacting e-commerce?
Yeah, absolutely. So our approach at Bridge has been twofold, and I've really gotten to experience it as, an employee of the company and then also in our product. So internally, it's actually become one of our core values as a company is to be AI native. And we've talked a lot about, how do we all 10x ourselves? We're not all engineers, but there's an opportunity there. So we've done
Yeah.
some hackathons and we've had some folks join our team recently that have really up leveled not only the tools that we're using, but just generally building knowledge bases and custom GPTs to really eliminate the noise in our internal Slack of a question that I've probably answered 10 times now can be answered through an internal resource. So that's been just a really fabulous way to, I think, make people work faster, but also be more independent as they're running their own deals, supporting customers, et cetera. That's kind of the internal piece. In terms of the product, of course, that's very much on our team's mind. So today, the most visible way that we use AI in the Bridge platform is for receipts. And in Bridge, a lot of folks can run things like rebates, or if they're using us for product warranty or registration, often brands choose to have consumers upload a proof of purchase receipt for
Totally.
that. So our AI today basically is able to scan those receipts, learn from it, and validate, did the qualifying purchase happen? Is the right SKU on the receipt? Is it at the right location or state, if that's a parameter?
Yeah.
And then we're also able to pull an analysis, a basket analysis. So what brands are really excited about is like, okay, what else do people tend to buy in conjunction with my SKU that's at Target? So we're able to really uncover those insights without the manual intervention of like checking for every single rebate. Of course, we have manual checks in place to, make sure everything's good there. So that's kind of as it is today. In terms of future roadmap,
Yeah.
our philosophy at Bridge has really been to think about the agentic landscape. So we've thought a lot about, how do we build an MCP within Bridge? How does Bridge become an agent that
Totally.
will eventually interact with our customers' agents? So going back to, Momofuku, if they eventually have an internal Momofuku agent, how does the Bridge agent think about and start to interact with them? Since we are such a rich source of data, we've thought a lot about, okay, if they're using certain BI tools or analysis, how do our agents just work together? And dare I say, eventually people might not even be logging into the platform. It would all be through like a Slack workflow or an agent flow.
Do you think MCP is going to stick or A to A?
I actually am not familiar with A to A.
Agent to agent. It's another sort of
Okay.
sort
Okay.
of technology.
Yeah.
And that's why, I mean, I think you answered my question because in the last like month when I've been talking to people about MCP, I say MCP and then ask them about A to A, and they're like, "What?" So I think that maybe MCP is going to stick. Avio just recently released their MCP, and it's fantastic. I mean, the efficiency and the expediency that it's creating. We're going to all be able to do a lot more with less, which really is the concept of what you're trying to accomplish in life. I mean, eventually AI is going to be able to free up half the day so I can spend another 4 hours shopping on all of my favorite e-commerce brands, right?
I hope so.
Yeah, seriously. So let's shift gears right now. Talk a little bit about your angel investor experience and what you're doing right now. You recently invested in a coffee brand called Laurel's. Is that right?
Laurels.
Laurels. My mistake.
Yes.
Yes, Laurel's.
That's okay.
Yeah, tell us about that and why and what the purpose and driven investment was about.
Yeah, absolutely. So, kind of the backstory here is, I haven't spent my whole career in startups. I joined the startup world about 5 years ago, background in management consulting. And when I joined the startup world, I started to learn a lot more about the VC landscape, fundraising, everything that goes along with that. And like many folks, was pretty horrified by the fact that only about 2% of capital goes to female founders. And that's been something that's,
Yeah,
yeah, isn't that crazy?
that is insane. And
2%.
I mean, and sorry, I have to ask because I'm trying to understand and learn, and I respect and embrace everything you're talking about. What percent of businesses out there are female owned? Well, more than 2%.
Well, more. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the gap there is we now have more women at the forefront of founding their businesses due
So,
to so many factors of education, different things like that. But the fact that this like capital engine that, is the foundation of so many companies, particularly in tech, is still such a small percentage. It's pretty mind-boggling.
yeah, it's insane. So that's kind of what drove your decision, and I think you said, when we were talking that this is something that you think you're going to be doing on a regular basis, right?
I hope so. And what I'll say for folks that are listening is when I started on this journey, I was thinking I'm going to have to write a 10K check or 20K check, which is not feasible for me. The truth is you
Feels it
don't
for
have to
most
do
people.
that.
One, yeah.
Yeah, you can write much smaller checks than that and still have influence. And so it was kind of the perfect crossroads of, I joined the e-commerce world about a year and a half ago, have had the privilege of working with so many incredible brands and folks and learned a lot about the space. And I thought, wait, this is how I can help change that percentage of money going to female founders. I can write these tiny angel checks, but the value I can bring to them is the fact that I get to work with so many brands every day. So I have a network that I can introduce them to. I have ideas and learnings. So all that led me to investing in Laurel's Coffee. So it's an A2 ready to drink, A2 dairy ready to drink coffee brand. If you're in New York, it's now on Wegmans. So make sure you
Oh,
check it out there.
I'm in New
You can
York.
also,
Okay, yeah.
yeah, we'll have
Does
to
it,
go to
but
Wegmans.
most importantly, does it have a bridge code on it?
Doesn't have a bridge code. We're working on that.
All right. Okay, cool. I'm sure you can make
But
it.
we'll get there eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah, but really the backstory is I actually invested in Laurels without ever trying the product, which seems
Wait,
very
what?
counterintuitive.
Yeah, well, take a step back. You wrote a check. That was an expensive cup of coffee, by the way. But you wrote a
Yeah,
check, and you hadn't even tried the. Okay, what? Yeah, answer that question. Sorry, I'm baffled, but I mean, I'm impressed.
totally. So here's
And
kind of
wait,
my
by the way,
philosophy.
who was on that sales team? I think I need to talk to them.
They're led, and that is why I wrote the check. So I had the chance to meet Isabella, who's the founder, and her story, her grit, her drive impressed me so much that I wrote the check before I ever got the coffee shipped to my front door. The reason being is it's really, really hard to start and scale a CPG brand. I've learned that
Yeah.
just being on the outside, right, the last year and a half. So my philosophy was like, you know what? I bet this product's amazing. I looked at the ingredient list. I was familiar with the things in it. But what I really cared about was the person behind it. And
Mm,
that is why I wrote the check.
I see. I mean, that really is, you know, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, ultimately, you got to believe in the person and the founder and the vision, not necessarily the business model too, of course.
Of
But like,
course.
but if you have a solid business model, but you don't really have a vision, it's not going to work. I get that. That's awesome. So you've only been in the e-commerce game for about roughly 2 years, and you've been quite successful. Congratulations.
Thank you.
But for those that are trying to get into the e-commerce game, and it's one of the hottest industries out there right now. I mean, I like to say we've barely scratched the surface in terms of what we're able to see. What advice do you have for those that are trying to pivot or transition into the e-commerce industry? I did it myself 10 years ago from music into tech and then e-commerce, and that's the whole evolution of Roswell, which we'll say for another day. But you've done it successfully. What advice do you have for those out there that are listening?
Yeah, absolutely. So my biggest mantra is just show up. That is how I got introduced to the e-commerce world. It was through an event related to the data space, which is where I was previously. I met an investor who also happened to have invested in Bridge, and that kind of opened up my world. So I would say show up, be curious, and be really thoughtful. I think the advantage that we all get to have in the e-commerce industry is that these are physical products. They're tactile,
Yeah.
so you get to have a relationship with them. And I remember interviewing at Bridge and, kind of getting it out in the open of, hey, I don't have this e-commerce retail background. And, our founder, Kate, at the time was like, look, you're a consumer. Go walk down the aisles at Target, Whole Foods. Think critically about that consumer experience. And then, we can tie it back to the problems that we're solving. So I
Well,
think the beauty of this is like, it's a more accessible industry in that way. And I would also encourage folks figure out, do you want to be on the vendor side or on the brand side? Because those are
on the
two.
agency side, aka the dark.
Yeah, or yeah, exactly. Like kind of figure out what's most interesting to you and why, and then really kind of double down in that.
Yeah.
And I mean, you know how small this world as an industry is. You start to realize like everyone has these kind of circular paths. So I think ultimately show up and invest in those relationships and good people.
That's just amazing life advice in general. I love that, Sarah. So where do you see the future of e-commerce going? And I'm going to caveat that with if I'm looking in 5 years now, but like even a year or two down the road, you got Shop Pay integrating with Perplexity. You have the ability for you to be able to click into AI results and go directly to buy or buy within it and more. What do you foresee as the future of e-commerce? Are we going to have D2C sites, or are people just going to be feeding into all these different interfaces and be true headless? I'd love to hear
Mm.
your opinion on that, Sarah.
Yeah, great question. I would say my opinion is that I think we'll still have those D2C sites. I think there's a lot of joy sparked in kind of that experience in browsing, and that's where brand really shines. But my kind of take is I think everything will just be more personal. And that's from a gifting perspective. That's going to be from me as a consumer. So I'm definitely excited and curious about like, how do we start to connect all of those dots of if Momofuku knows I'm a customer and loves their product,
They do.
other do now, are other brands going to know, okay, because Sarah likes this brand, we're also going to be a compatible fit based on more data and this broader ecosystem. And I think I'm excited about how do we connect some data points and dots that might seem very, very different, but they kind of wrap together for these consumers. The other thing I'll add is, something I challenge myself and my team on a lot is that we live in New York. We're kind of in this, deep ecosystem of brand and consumer. but 80 or 90% of Americans shop at Walmart today.
Yep.
There's not even Walmarts in New York City, right? So I've had the chance to spend some time in Bentonville, which is where Walmart's headquartered,
Yeah.
and that's been a really great experience for me to think about how, that 80% of our population is still driving to the store, walking down the aisles, looking at the shelves. I don't think that's going anywhere anytime soon, but I'm curious how, Walmart and other folks will start to use data and AI to enhance those experiences to kind of round out everything. But I don't think in-store shopping or D2C shopping is going anywhere anytime soon. I think it will just continue to evolve.
I totally agree, Sarah. Well said. So the purpose of all this data is to create a better and more personalized user experience. But how do you thread the needle so that you don't come off creepy and you come off like by presenting value, like that here's a brand that you should be a part of. And yeah, we know something about you, but it's not like Friday the 13th and Mike Myers sitting out your outside of your window. Like, how do you create that type of personalized experience, but still feels organic?
Yeah, I think it's a delicate balance, right? You're not going to make everyone happy. And depending on kind of where people live, the generation they grew up in, you're going to have varying responses. I think the biggest opportunity there is to reward people for their loyalty. And that goes back to omnichannel and what I'm focused on solving every day. Like, nothing grates me more when I get maybe an ad from a brand that's like, you should try us. And in my mind, I'm like, I've spent hundreds of dollars on your products, but I buy them from Costco and they don't even know who I am. So I think where I would be happy to give my data away is now that brand knows, actually, Sarah's a really loyal customer. She just happens to buy our product at, these offline places. So we're going to now reward her for that loyalty, even though it wasn't on a particular site.
Would you opt to share your data with sister brands or within a brand's network if they were to give you points or they were to give you a free gift or something of that nature? Or does it depend on the connection that you have with the brand?
100% yes. And the reason being is I personally get a little bit overwhelmed when, I read an article and it's like, here's the 50 lip gloss brands you should try. That's too many.
Yeah.
That is way too many for me.
Mhm.
So I would actually love if somebody's already thought through and kind of caters and gives that to me on a silver platter. I would be more than happy to exchange my data for that. And it's a nice little dopamine hit if you get a free gift or some loyalty rewards.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we're almost out of time here today, Sarah. I just want to give you the opportunity to give any shout outs, talk a little bit about the bridge roadmap, anything you have going on personally, and also ending with a little bit about how the agencies and the brands and the other tech platforms that are watching might be able to reach out to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say, of course, a big shout out to my team at Bridge. They're an incredible group of humans, and I feel privileged to work with them every day.
Well found,
And,
female owned, right?
yes, yes, we're female founded by Kate Stevens. Definitely give her a follow on LinkedIn. She's sharing amazing content there. And that's a great way to get in touch with me as well. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. My DMs are always open, or Sarah at bridge.it
Perfect.
is another great way. But yeah, I would just say thank you so much for having me and listening to me kind of share my thoughts. And also another thing is if anyone here is interested in angel investing, I'm also happy to share my experiences. And I would really, really encourage folks. It's not as intimidating as it sounds. You don't have to have as much money as you think. And it's a really cool way to start kind of chipping away at this problem of the inequality in the VC space.
I love that. We're gonna have you on again and talk more about that because I'm fascinated by it. And the micro investing that you're talking about really does impact people on a macro level. And I'm very impressed. Very impressed by your story, Sarah. And thank you for your time today. And we're gonna have you on again soon. Sarah Davidson, Jill of all trades at Bridge and Angel Investor. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. Bye, all.